Good morning, I'm Ruth Reinhardt from Health Through Fitness and Think Bold, Not Old, and welcome to Conversations Off the Couch for this week. I am so excited, as I am with all my conversations, but this morning I've got the most amazing young woman. Her name is Donna-Leigh Perfect. Donna, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Ruth. It's amazing to be here. And you say conversations off the couch. Well, I'm actually sitting on the couch, but
and you've got a special guest on your couch. You've got Rocky Rockstar, haven't you?
There he is, right there, Rocky Rockstar himself.
We'll talk about Rocky. Hello, Rocky. He's gorgeous, isn't he? And I follow you on Facebook, so you're often out walking with your special rescue dog. And there's a whole story about that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Donna, I particularly wanted to talk to you this week because we're in the middle of Domestic Violence Month. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And I'm so grateful that I've actually seen you speaking on stage. You're an international speaker. I think you're 3 times published author. You have a big presence around the whole domestic violence platform. And I think the sad part of that is, as most of us could probably relate, is that as a child, you lived through childhood domestic violence because your father was a schizophrenic and an alcoholic who ultimately murdered your mum. And I know for me, even as I say those words, I just get this dreadful cold feeling. And I know for a lot of my listeners, they probably, if not been in a domestic violence situation themselves, they possibly will know somebody. So, Donna, walk us through that. Just walk us through how that happened and where it went.
Yes, well, my life as a 7-year-old or younger, I had a pretty normal life as far as I can remember. I'm a twin and I'm actually the youngest out of 5 siblings. And so it was quite a, reasonable sized family, I guess, 7 of us. And we lived in a suburb of Auckland in New Zealand. And, life seemed to be pretty normal, pretty, just like any normal kind of Kiwi life, except, we have kids from the age of 7 through to 15, so I guess as normal as that could be. But I do recall as I was growing up, there were lots of arguments and lots of fights, verbal mostly, around alcohol, whenever alcohol was being consumed in the house. And often when my mother's brother would come over, it would escalate between my father and my uncle, and they would often kind of have moments of sort of pushing each other around, and it was always alcohol fueled. But I don't recall really anything sort of majorly violent happening between my mum and my father. So this particular day really, shocked me so much. So I was only 7 years old, Ruth, and I remember waking one morning to the piercing screams of my mum. I jumped out of bed and I walked out into the corridor where I heard my father screaming, yelling, swearing as he chased my mum down the hallway, down the stairs with a knife. And I was in complete shock, just running behind my father and wondering what was going on. It was probably about 5 a.m. in the morning. And as he chased her down the stairs, I saw my mum try and reach for the handle of the sliding door at the downstairs part of the house and to try and escape. And she wasn't able to in the time that she was, trying to get out of the door. My father drove the knife deep into her back. I saw the whole thing. My sister and my brothers who were downstairs were gathered around at the bottom staircase, and they also witnessed it. My mum just, she was stumbling along the side path to the front of the house, and she collapsed to the ground. And I saw her take her last breath.
Donna, I'm often lost for words, but I'm struggling here. I've heard you on stage, and I remember I've got that same feeling now that when I first heard you speak. And I think it's hard to imagine of how that even plays out, and how you even as a child were able to pick yourself up and take that experience and step up to the world and show up to the world around domestic violence.
Well, you know, Ruth, this was only the beginning of my nightmare, because my father went to prison and I was separated from all of my siblings. So for a little while, even my twin brother, and we were taken to foster homes. And because none of the family would take us in as a, you know, even separately, there was no kind of really offering of any significance with that. So we did stay with some cousins for a little while, but that was only temporary until they could find foster homes. And so for 6 years almost, I went to 13 foster homes. So I was pretty much living out of a plastic rubbish bag. I'd pack my things and go from foster home to foster home. And most of those foster homes were incredibly abusive, you know, situations. So, you know, a 7-year-old that's just witnessed the murder of her mum, her father's gone to prison, she's been separated from all of her siblings, and now she has to live in a strange house with strangers she's never met before, in a traumatized state, and without any counseling, without any kind of emotional support whatsoever. And then having to go to a different school every time I moved. So I would just create friendships in schools, and then I would be moving to another school. So I went to the same number of schools, 13. And because I was different, because I stood out, because I was traumatized, because I didn't have a mum or a dad, I was a target for bullies in school. So I would be abused in the foster homes when I came home from school, and then when I went to school, I would be bullied. So this was a constant, ongoing kind of trauma over trauma over trauma. And so lots of levels of abuse. And when I was 12, the authorities came to me and offered me a choice, which was probably the most difficult choice I've ever had to make in my life, and certainly not a choice a 12-year-old should ever have to make. And the choice was, Donna, you can stay in foster care until you're 18 and free to leave. And for me, that looked like another 6 years of abuse, 6 years of moving, instability, insecurity, you know, bullying, everything that I had experienced for that, you know, a number of years, or to return to my father, who had been released from prison. But the hardest thing about this decision, Ruth, was that in that decision, I had to return back to the home where my father had murdered my mother.
Donna, as I said, I've heard you speak on stage, but a lot of the details, if you were speaking them, it was probably when I was bawling when I first heard your story. Trying to put any perspective around that, I just kind of can't get my head around it. And, you know, we all know that the statistics at the moment is 1 woman every week is murdered at the hands of her spouse or partner.
It's almost 2, Ruth.
Is it almost 2? Wow. And I think COVID-19 is probably going to add to that. And I think what we don't hear in those statistics is the impact on children within those homes. We just kind of hear that raw statistic, and our heart goes out. And recently here in Brisbane, as you know, we had a dreadful situation where a mum and 3 children were burnt. And what always surprises me, Donna, is nothing ever seems to change at the front end, or what I see. And yes, the community's shocked and horrified, and there's an outcry and an outrage, as there should be, and people have candlelight vigils and everything like that. And then if the perpetrator has died as a result of that, then it all just seems to die off. I've worked in the courts for a long time, so you kind of see things come and go. And I kind of just shake my head and think, what's changing? Are you, being at the front line of this stuff as an ambassador, because you're also a trauma lifeline coach as well, so you've seen it all and heard it all, but are we making any inroads to domestic violence? I mean, I'm waiting and holding my breath to see what's going to happen with all this lockdown stuff around COVID-19 and the impact that that's going to be having on, and mainly women that are in domestic violence situations. I know that that's not always the case. And I'm thinking, there's been masses and billions of dollars now that have gone out to try and save our economy. And I think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the domestic violence message? What are we doing to make a change at the front end?
Well, I know that the statistics coming out at the moment from Lifeline is that there has been an increase of 75% in calls from domestic violence victims over the past 2.5 months during this COVID-19. So it's astounding. It's astounding. And so the fallout from this is going to be massive. And, you know, it impacts on so many levels. You know, it impacts on, you know, the emotional level. It impacts on children and the trauma that they face in this circumstance. So we haven't seen the fallout. You know, these are just the amount of call increases on domestic violence specifically. So it's massive. I know Di Farmer, the Minister for Family and you know, domestic violence, is doing an awful lot to try and you know, change these statistics, and she's very, very dedicated and committed to it. So you know, I think she's an incredible woman, and I've actually had the privilege of meeting her and having a chat with her, and I know that she is incredibly committed to this. So, so she's doing everything she can, but you know, this has been an unprecedented time, this COVID, and of course, because of the COVID isolation, it's a perfect environment for domestic violence, because it's one of the things that, and of course, narcissists try and you know, isolate your partner so that then they can you know, pull that abuse on to their partner, whether it's verbal, physical, emotional, financial, whatever that might be. And so it's a perfect environment for that. So I think we're going to see a lot more fallout than what we are hearing so far. But you know, I think until we get to the core of the problem, and I believe really the core of the problem is that we need to address why perpetrators are acting out on their partner. And the thing is that whether it's a narcissist, whether it's a, you know, a bully in schools, whatever it might be, you know, hurt people, Ruth. And so until we get to the bottom of why this person is acting out, because it is a behavior, and we all know that behaviors can change with the support, with the, you know, the treatment, the therapy, all that kind of thing, working through old patterns, you know, we can change behaviors. But we need to, first of all, recognize that this is the core. So in the meantime, you know, Band-Aid you know, approaches are just never going to work. And that's why I'm so committed and dedicated to helping our children at a young age through my Resilient Rockstar show, my Resilient Peace program, is to teach children the importance of respect, compassion, kindness, building, you know, connected friendships that share the same core values of, you know, respect and, you know, being kind to each other, being compassionate to each other, being there to support each other, you know, teaching kids to express their emotions and reach out for the support they need. and educate them when they're at a young age about all of these things, so that they have tangible tools. They can, go on into their adulthood and be more respectful, caring, confident, happier adults.
And that actually mirrors a conversation that I was listening to on the ABC after that horrific thing that happened here in Brisbane with the young mum and 3 kiddies. And the psychologist was saying exactly the same thing. He was saying that until we kind of get back to the roots and are rearing our children, and particularly our men or our young boys, about what is, appropriate behaviour and how to treat women, and because it just kind of really struck a chord. So, and I thought, yeah, that's right, because for a lot of men, they've been reared in an environment where they said, they've got to tough it out and whatever, and they're not really comfortable about coming forward and asking for help. And they bottle things up, and I mean, it's no excuse then to be going and taking it out on any human, let alone a wife or a partner. And I think that's where the education process comes in. What are we looking at in our schools? At the moment, as you know, I'm homeschooling my 10-year-old grandson, as you are. You've got a year 12 daughter, and and as much as I'm loving doing it, I've got my eye on the end of next week, and hopefully that's when he'll go back to school. But it's the education system hasn't changed. I'm teaching him things that I learned, back in the 60s when I was in primary school, and I kind of think there's something missing. Yes, we are teaching religion, and because my grandson goes to a little Catholic school, but we're still teaching the whole subject, the same thing. I just think there's something missing. I think there's something missing. I think we need to be stepping up into that space a lot more. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a very outdated system that needs a complete overhaul, the education system, to be honest, Ruth. And
yeah,
I think so much of the teaching is so irrelevant to today's world that we live in. And I think mental health has got to be the number one priority.
yeah.
And, I believe that when children are happy and balanced, then they learn and they absorb information better. So, if they're coming from a traumatized home environment where something's going on in their home, and then they come to school and you expect them to learn about maths or English or whatever, that child is not even going to be in the right headspace for that. Yeah. And if we don't support children through their mental health, and I'm talking about the whole holistic part of this. So, my Resilient Peace program is all about looking at the whole person. So, everything from healthy eating, exercise every day, right through to how they express their emotions, and then what sort of, friendships, and identifying with their own value system and their own principles, and connecting with people in their community and who they can reach out to for support, who they can express themselves to, and also serving the community, I think is really important. So giving back, so that, there's, once we can kind of, teach all these principles to a child, then through that, I believe they gain confidence, they gain respect, they gain compassion and consideration for others, and all these sort of things, which, makes them more balanced and makes them happier and I think able to contribute to society on a healthy level. So, but this needs to be the number one priority, in my opinion, is healthy, mental health. We have an increase in mental health that's just going through the roof, and now with the COVID, it's just going to be, I mean, it already is escalating. Anxiety is just through the roof right now. We're not just talking about children; we're talking about adults, everyone. So
yeah, and I've certainly seen that kind of firsthand. I mean, unfortunately, I guess I live on my own, so I haven't had to kind of manage, all those different personalities, and it has been, I've been watching different Facebook groups and things like that. Donna, I could talk about speak for hours, but you're busy and I've got to get on with life as well. So Rocky Rockstar, who we just met earlier, can we have another peek?
Yes, of course. He's snoozing away here. There's Rocky.
Hello, Rocky.
He's having a little look at you.
He's your rescue dog.
He is.
And also the star of children's books that you have written. I brought a set for my grandson for Christmas. Tell me a little bit about the theme of Rocky Rockstar and your books.
Well, it's really interesting because I believe those books were channeled to me. So I never thought of being a children's author. It wasn't in the plan at all. And a challenge was presented to me. Somebody was wanting to write a book and hey, look, let's send a chapter to each other, make each other accountable and make this happen. And they called out to me, Donna, are you on this challenge? And I said, sure, of course I'm going to do this challenge. So within about 24 hours, this idea of writing children's books and writing books about my daughter, Jessie, and our rescue dog, Rocky Rockstar. And so that began this kind of amazing series. So the first two books, Puppy Rescue and Tiger, are, that beautiful stories just about the adorable bond between our rescue dog and my daughter, and the life lessons that Rocky Rockstar teaches Jess about life, and about kindness and compassion. And I think that's beautiful if you can have a little takeaway message for your child when you're reading to them. And Ruth, it's just been a phenomenal kind of full cycle here, and I get goosebumps talking about it because these books, apart from being channeled to me, I have decided to actually donate a percentage of the profits of these books to a charity called Paradise Kids. Now, Paradise Kids is a grief and loss program for children that are going through suffering, whether it's a death in the family or a separation and that kind of thing. And my daughter, Jessie, did their program when she was 4 years old when my first marriage broke up. And that program, it's a 6-week program, and it teaches children about expressing their emotions and, really getting in touch with the grief and working through it. And it helped my daughter so much during that time. And these books, I believe, are my 7-year-old self that I've written. And the reason why I say that is the first foster home that I went to when I was traumatized after I witnessed my mum being murdered, the woman there was the only happy foster home that I went to. She was a Catholic mum, and she was a single mum with 2 daughters. And she used to read bedtime stories to me at night. And these stories just enabled me to escape the reality of my trauma for a while and into the story. Gave me a bit of respite, a little bit of peace. And I just think, wow, now that is my 7-year-old self wishing that during this time, I had the opportunity to reach out to a service like Paradise Kids when I was grieving the way I was, and having that service available to me. So now I'm able to support a service like that for children today that may need to have that support going through trauma. And
wow.
It's just this cycle is just incredible, amazing.
That's lost for words. Donna, I just kind of think, is there any limit to kind of the work that you're doing? I know that, we're certainly seeing you on the international stage. You're over in America just recently and spreading your message. You've got a gratitude chain that's going all around the world. That's just amazing. And I think coming back to our roots and saying we have much to be grateful for here in Australia. However, there are still lots of things that are happening, the dark side, for children, for women, and for lots of different things. You've got something else on the boil at the moment. Are you at liberty to share that with us, with my viewers?
Well, it's very exciting. It's the Resilient Peace Program. It's a program that I've been working on for a number of years now, and I've been working alongside a teacher and also a principal, and it was a program that was aligned to a previous show that I was doing, a live stage show called The Dream Guards, and now that is what is it, morphed into the Resilient Rockstar show for children. So this is a primary school show, teaching kids to tap into the resilient rockstar within them. And so the Resilient Peace program is aligned to this live stage show. And it's a number of modules, but this is for parents of primary age children to run at home with their children. So it's interactive, it's fun and engaging, and it's it's simple to run. It's going to be available on my website in a couple of weeks, the first module, which is super exciting. And it's just going to really build confident, happy, resilient kids that are going to have tangible tools as they move into adulthood and have some really healthy relationships moving forward.
Hey, Donna, I think that's a great segue into grandparenting, because it's also something that grandparents can do with their grandchildren, not just with parents. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing the homeschooling gig with my grandson, I'm not sure whether you know, he's part of the Overseas Adoption Program, and so he's been with us, I think it'll be 7 years this year. Wow. And so there's all that kind of thing that goes around the whole adoption thing, and we're very grateful for him being here with us. But I could kind of see where that would be a really great thing for me to be able to do with him as well, and just I could think just to see that as a perfect gift for a grandparent to be running with a grandchild. For a lot of us, one of the things that I have heard a lot of was saying, oh, we can't connect with our grandkids. They've always got their head stuck in a device or a mobile device or, whatever. And I think it's right. But I have loved seeing people out on their bikes and children out doing things with their parents during COVID. So I'm hoping that sense of family and connecting will continue whichever way the world kind of gets back on its axis. I think there certainly needed to be a change. So, Donna, one of the things that I can remember from a childhood, and my parents kind of were born in the First World War, Dad was in the Second World War, they went through the Great Depression and all that kind of thing. And, you didn't kind of get too involved in what was happening over in somebody else's house, you didn't. And I can see that that's perpetrated and kind of kept going through the world a little bit, where people just, they see something happening under their noses, but, they don't really want to get involved, or they might say to themselves, oh, it'll make it worse. There was something the other day in a Facebook community group where a husband or partner was giving the lady a pretty rough time in the grocery shop or wherever they were, and a lady actually stepped up and asked her, was she all right? And, he got aggressive, and she obviously thought, gosh knows what was going to happen when she got home. If we see or have any inkling around a friend or a stranger or whoever being in a domestic violence situation, how should we handle that? Is going up and asking somebody whether they're all right while the perpetrator is there, is that putting them in more danger when they get home? Or how should we manage that?
It's a really good question, Ruth. And the first thing, of course, we need to really be as upstanders wherever we can and not bystanders. So we've really got to shift that way of thinking. And we've seen for the last decade kids recording other children being bullied and violently attacked in schools, and we've seen this. They've been videoing it on their mobile phones, and then it goes and gets uploaded onto YouTube, and kids are taking their own lives over this. So it has to stop, and we have to move into a place of compassion and helping each other, and knowing that we are connected. We're all humans and we're all sisters and brothers, so we need to show love. We need to come from a place of love, not fear. And there's really only two paradigms, and that is love and fear. So if we can come from love always, and And it is really difficult when you may see that and the perpetrators around. So wherever you can, obviously discretion is important. And if you know the person and you can reach out to them at some other point, that would be the ideal scenario. So if you can, somehow reach out to them when that person's not there and say, look, I've noticed some things. I just want to check in with you. I'm concerned. I want to know that I want you to know that you're not alone. And here are some services. Download some services. Give them the options. That's why I've created my my free app, which is actually in the Adventures of Jessie and Rocky Rockstar back of the books. And they've got 13 life-saving support services on, and one of them is a DV 1-800 respect number. So these services are available to people. And I think if you have any suspicion of somebody that you might know that may be in this scenario, have it available on your phone, have it available in your handbag. And when you get that opportunity to reach out to them discreetly, then just say, look, this is a number you can call. And, these people are very highly trained to be able to help them through the steps to empower them to move past this abuse, and there are shelters and all sorts of things. So it is a step-by-step process, but reaching out and letting them know, and not judging, just being there and saying, look, because the thing is, there's so much shame and there's so much guilt around this stuff. And so, often women and men, but women would, they feel, oh, well, they've offered me this advice, they've told me I should leave, and I haven't left. And so then there's a shame and guilt that I've stayed, so I can't reach out to that person again because I'm embarrassed, and I'm so ashamed that I didn't take their advice. But we've got to move past this, and by not judging people and just saying, look, there is support there, and when the time is right for you, then I'm here, and I'm here. Just reach out to me. I'm here to help and support you however I can. And that may be just a phone call and being able to talk to somebody. It may be that you can call around in your car when that person's or the perpetrator's away, pack a bag with them and have it at your own home, so that they have a survival kit available when they do leave that environment. They've got a bag of stuff that they can have available. So there's all sorts of ways that you can support a person.
And there's women's shelters
Yep.
and things like that around. I'm guessing that there's probably not nearly enough. As I heard the statistics this morning about how many billions of dollars this pandemic has cost Australia, I'm really anxious about then what happens to our things like domestic violence and all the different programs, the intervention programs. Where's the money going to come for that? And I just think that as a collective, as a human collective, it's about time that we stood up, as I said, showed up, step up and speak up, get past the fear. Neutrality to me is not an option. To me, neutrality is backing the perpetrator and does nothing for the victim. And I think there are things like this, there's no sitting on the fence. If we're not comfortable about being in the front line or whatever, there are other ways to be contributing, whether it's a monetary contribution to domestic violence situations, that you can kind of donate money, or it might be kind of supporting a community group that's doing work with domestic violence. We're very lucky here in Brisbane. There's just lots of community things like Share the Dignity and people working with the homeless, because a lot of our people that flee a domestic violence situation, often they'll end up on the streets as well because they've got nowhere to go or they're living in their car. It's not always as straightforward, but I think, as I said, as a collective, we need to step up. Donna, I don't think we've heard the last of you. I'm pretty sure that you're going to be out the front of this, and there's just some amazing people in the world that I put you up there with, and the Hetty Johnsons of the world, and the Donna-Leigh Perfects of the world. But it inspires me, and hopefully my listeners, to be able to say, well, neutrality is not an option here, and we need to do what we can to also be an influence in our grandchildren's lives and our children's lives, so that we can change the whole dialogue around why domestic violence is happening. I can't wait to see the launch of your new program.
Yes, it's exciting.
So that's in a couple of weeks, you were saying?
Yes, I'm hoping so. I'm sort of relying heavily on my web designer now. So he's an incredible man. He's actually been volunteering his time to help me, and his business has just gone through the roof because everybody's gone online. So he's doing everything he can, but because he believes so strongly in what I'm doing to help children and really turn this around, he's 100% behind me. So so it's exciting, and I agree with you, Ruth. I think grandparents are an amazing, I guess, demographic for this program, because I can see that, I mean, mums and dads, they're busy, and grandparents have probably got a little bit more quality time to spend with their kids. So when they have their grandchildren around, they want to do something that makes a difference, and that is memorable and significant. And I think this is certainly describing this program, and having that generation gap too. I think the perspective is different. So grandparents have a more resilient kind of approach to learning, approach to life. And so this program, I think, is really going to be embraced well by grandparents.
Oh, I hope so. And I want you to share all the links once it's gone live and all that things. If you let me know, and I'll share that across all my platforms. As you know, all my clients are kind of over 50, over 60 kind of demographic. Hey, Donna, every time I speak to you, I learn something new. I learn something new about your journey that makes me feel very humble. I'm indebted to you in the work that you do and have done with Lifeline. I think most of us have, somewhere in our lives, have had a journey that's been a little bit tough, but I have to say I'm full of gratitude that I didn't have the same journey as you. But I also believe that these journeys need to be spotlighted and not just pushed under, because I think, if we keep pushing these things down and saying, oh no, we can't get involved, I think all we're doing is enabling the perpetrators to continue the behaviour. And I think we need to get them the help as well. So we need to be concentrating on why this is happening. Everybody's born pure. No child is ever born anything but pure. And, people's circumstances can tilt one way or the other with the cards that they've been dealt. I don't see you as a victim, Donna. I think the universe has put you on this earth to carry the message forward in lots of different formats, and I just love your energy. I love watching you on stage. I love your books, and I'm just so excited about the program coming through. I'll be looking at it to do with my young grandson as well. What's the age group that's the rest? So primary school, are we talking about? What?
Yes. So it's prep to year 3 and years 4 and 6.
Okay, well, he'll fit in the 4 and 6 program. And so let me know when that's happening. I'll share that across all my platforms. Donna, gosh, I get tingles just talking to you, and I know that you're going on to continue the incredible work that we need. We just want to clone you. We need 1 million of you out there just to take up your workload. But thank you for joining me today on Conversations Off the Couch. It's an absolute absolute honour to be in your presence, even though we're technology. You're based on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
So you're a Kiwi. There must be that. So I've recently come back from New Zealand. My first trip to New Zealand was in February, and so for anybody that knows me, I'm a massive fan of Jacinda Ardern over there, the Prime Minister, and beautiful, beautiful country. No surprises that it's produced somebody like you. Thank you for joining me, and let's touch base again another time. And I'd love to be able to talk with you. I'm going to muck around with some technology here. I'll come back and talk to you, Donna, and this will go up through the Think Bold Not Old YouTube channel, yeah, and then I'll put it across all my platforms. Okay, thanks everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, thanks, Donna. Bye.